Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the GCN, Graph Convolutional Networks, and I'm going to talk about its basic ideas and its applications. So what is GCN? Basically, the full name of GCN is Graph Convolutional Networks. So there's three parts to it, the graph, the convolution, and the neural network. We will start reversely from the neural network because it is the fundamental element, or say the basic idea behind the whole graph convolutional networks. So the neural network, just like we already discussed in class, it's like a machine learning model, or say grouping like neurons and different models together. And it is the core of deep learning. So basically, it is a very hot topic right now because it's very, very high efficiency and scalability. And sometimes only several epochs of training, we can get a very accurate results. So a convolutional neural network, it is just a neural network that employs the process called convolution by adding convolution layers. And it basically means it will take in an image as a matrix. So just like the image shown on the screen, we'll have an input matrix, and then we will have a matrix, another matrix as a filter, and it's usually a 3 by 3 matrix. Then the filter is applied to an area of the image, and a dot product is calculated between the image and the filter. So after one operation, the kernel will shift to like another area on the image, and then repeat this process until the kernel has swept across the entire image. And after sweeping across the entire image, um, the neural network will apply a RELU transformation, the rectify linear unit transformation, to the feature map, which can introduce non-linearity to the model. And then after that, we can either apply more convolution layers or we can apply a polling layer. So all these effort are used to find like informations or like learn the features or learn the patterns in a very scalable way. For example, we have an image made of RGB color, then we'll have a 3D array, which is very large and very hard if we want to go like 1 pixel by 1 pixel. So we have the convolutional neural network now that can fastly and very efficiently do the work. So lastly, the graph part. We all know what is the graph, and a graph convolutional network is just a convolutional network that works with like data represented by a graph. So we have a lot of data in our life that can be that have a graph representation, and it is relatively harder to learn like information or like pattern from it because graph is comparatively unstructured than other data. So computer scientists developed the GCN because it is very powerful, right? Because since we can represent a lot of important data as graph, then it is necessary for us to learn information or like learn the structure, learn the features in these data. And that's what GCN is for. And we can do a lot of things with it. For example, we can do disease diagnosis and prediction, and we can structure the unstructured image data, and we can use it on natural language processing, and we can use it on natural sciences like physics or biology, and also in social network analysis. And the field of graph convolutional network is evolving in a very fast or rapid pace. So recently, I read several very interesting paper talking about using GCN-centered architecture for learning brain networks. So one of the paper, they proposed a GCN architecture, and they used the data, the fMRI data, which is the functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is like a magnetic scan on brain. And they use it and then represent it as a network and then use the GCN to encode high dimensional network data into very low dimension node representation of the network data. And then with that information, they can effectively categorize major depressive disorder. So just like we can see from the screen, we first have the fMRI data, and then we pre-process it into the data matrix and the graph representation, and then we feed them into the GCN layers, like the neural network and the convolutional layers. And then we have the output. And with the classifier, we can classify the output into either like normal or like patient with depressive disorder. And like similar approaches were proposed this year, like I think in 2020 and 2021, there were several papers talking about using GCN to diagnose either autism spectrum disorder or even Alzheimer's disease. So I think there's another research talking about using GCN to detect Alzheimer's disease. Basically, they represent population as a sparse graph. And when it's known or associated with imaging-based feature vectors, and while the information is integrated as edge weights. So, and then they use GCN to learn this like huge graph and then find like the probability of each individual of having the Alzheimer's disease or not. So actually recently I'm doing a research on generating data. And after reading about GCN, I think there might be potential in the future to use GCN with some generative model, such as the GAN, the Generative Adversarial Network, or normalizing flow to generate synthetic data. Um, I think there's a lot of potential because we now lack a lot of like graph representing like data in graph representation. And if we can use GCN and some generative model to create spatial temporal data like EHR or even brain activity data, that would be really helpful to the healthcare or like medical area. Yeah, thank you. That's the end.